All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I am going to be reviewing Frontier by Patrick Chiles, or Chiles. I don't know. Or Chils. I just pronounce it Patrick Chiles. So this book was given to me by Baen Books, the publisher, in that box of books they sent me because they like my channel and they wanted to give me a chance to read some of their books to see if I liked them and would review them. Well, I only review books I like on this channel, and I really, really liked this book. So thank you, Baen Books, for introducing me to a new author. Since reading this, I have ordered his other two books that are available through Baen Books off of Amazon, and I'm looking forward to reading and reviewing those on the channels too. So let's talk about Frontier by Patrick Chiles. The cover is done by the Hugo Award-winning science fiction fantasy illustrator Bob Eggleton. It's really cool, kind of an old school cover. Really reminds me of those old 1980s science fiction book covers, like by Gregory Benford and Greg Bear and some of the others, you know. But Bob Eggleton has done a lot of illustrations for people. He did all of the old Brian Lumley Necromancer, the vampire Necroscope, not Necromancer, Necroscope books. So anyway, this book starts out pretty cool. Starts out talking about the Space Force. Remember, it started by Donald J. Trump, the Space Force. Remember that? Well, that's what we're talking about here. And we've got a main character named Marshall Hunter, who is the opening scene. He's walking around inspecting his spacecraft. And it's pretty cool. I like the low-tech. I mean, this is not high-tech science fiction. This is not high science. This is low-tech science fiction. And let me talk about, I'll explain that in a minute. So the opening line is dynamite. The opening line: 1,000 things can happen when you light a rocket engine. Only one of them is good. Sounds about right. And then we get him walking around his spacecraft, inspecting it. I really liked the fact that we just start out with this guy doing a normal, routine, mundane part of his job, but part of a job that is so necessary. And on page 60, as we get into the book, on page 62 and 63, there was a passage that I really related to, and I'll talk about that. I'll read it to you. So we're talking about Space Force. This book doesn't take place that far into our future. We really haven't gone into space that far yet. And we're dealing with the Space Force, which is run by the government. And if I work for the government, and things can just not run smoothly. And so anyway, I love this passage. So they couldn't have illustrated Flynn's point better if they'd tried. Limited time, and every task outside seemed to be twice as hard as on Earth, or so he'd been told repeatedly. Panels stuck in place, cold welded to each other, wire harnesses and coolant lines frayed from unexpected torque. Drop a tool or a component in the training tank, and it'd float to the bottom of the pool. Here it'd go off in whatever direction it did, inadvertently pushed forever. Lowest bidder, Flynn muttered. Pardon? Before John Glenn flew into orbit, he supposedly said he couldn't help but think that every single part of his spacecraft had been assembled by the lowest bidder. Some things never change. Yeah, I work in a department for the U.S. government that every single thing that we use because the lowest bidder got the contract, and it shows from our computer systems the computer programs that we're allowed to use, to every tool and every light switch and every water faucet and every single bit of equipment that we use is second-rate shit. And even the astronauts understand this. Even the astronauts understand this. Okay, so I really enjoyed how Chiles puts together this kind of like group of people that are working for this Space Force. And they kind of don't trust anything that's happening as far as just the equipment they're using, you know? I mean, and I relate to that. Holy, do I relate to that. So anyway, Marshall Hunter, he is our main point of view character. I enjoyed his point of view character parts the most, although we do get a handful of other point of view characters in this story. The themes of the book are kind of about our expansion into space, civilians doing a lot of the legwork for that, the laws and the what sort of laws would become commonplace in a result of this space travel, where just anybody can kind of go into space. And if we do have anybody going into space, well, who's going to police that? Are we going to have like the highway patrol up there? I mean, because you know the things can happen, people can crash there, and who's going to police this whole thing? Who's going to if something bad happens? Is there a fire department up there? Who's going to be the rescue team if stuff goes bad, or things catch fire, or people crash, or people are just floating lost? I mean, you come untethered to your spacecraft, and you're like the tools that they mentioned that they lose, that just floats out there forever. I mean, you know, the Space Force. So the Space Force is part of this. So they are kind of like the firemen, highway patrol, whatever and they've got this command structure that's sort of based off of our own naval command structure, the chain of command. And so what's this book about beyond that? Well, there is a plot to it. A billionaire type of space explorer, kind of like an Elon Musk type guy, goes missing in space near an asteroid that he was interested in. And now Marshall Hunter and his team is dispatched to rescue this fellow. And it is just well written. It's an adventure story, a low-tech adventure story that takes place not that far into our future. So we're not dealing with space aliens. We're not dealing with light speed travel. We're not even dealing with people that are even going to Mars or Pluto or well, Pluto's the farthest we could go in our own solar system. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's something, I don't know. Uranus? Saturn? I don't know. They haven't been to them in this book anyway. So I'm going to just read the back of the book because it does a much better job of explaining kind of the plot than but I thoroughly enjoyed this book up to the point where I ordered the other two books that this guy's done for Baen. So Marshall Hunter only wanted to fly. The faster, the higher, the better. But Space Force has other plans for him. Interplanetary search and rescue. Now, a high-profile billionaire couple goes missing on their way to survey a near-Earth asteroid. The nuclear-powered Borman is dispatched on an audacious breakneck interplanetary run to find the couple's wayward spacecraft and bring them home. At the same time, cislunar space falls into chaos as critical satellites fail and valuable lunar mineral shipments disappear in transit. Facing an impossible choice between salvation and sacrifice, Marshall Hunter has to find a way to save both his crewmates and space-age civilization itself from an implacable foe. And that's a pretty good description of what's going on. Pretty dope book, in my opinion. I really liked it. I will give this a solid 8.5 out of 10, and I am going to eagerly await reading the other two books that I just ordered from Amazon from this writer, and there's the review of that.